Hi guys, this is Dr. Williams here, and I've got an interesting conversation as someone who I talk about the public health side of water, water sanitation and hygiene, SDG 3. And so I think about 7 years ago or so, when I was, really deep in research, I I came across this conversation on water would be a security threat in the years to come. So there's going to be a lot of power control when it comes to water, and I thought, power control. But at that time, I wasn't really like invested in knowing it. I was just like, that's very curious. Water is everywhere. God has given us water, rivers, seas, oceans, and all. So why should water be a problem? Why should someone control water? So I get to read the conversation. It's a platform that shares a lot of amazing articles from nature to, anything you're thinking about, well researched and all. And I have been following the conversation in South Africa about water. Durban has an issue with water, and I'm like, what has migration and race and water got to do, with this whole power play and all? And I realize, yes, when there's limited water, tensions get to rise. Who's the owner of water? Who's supposed to have access to this water? And it's very intriguing to see how water is shaping people's lives. The access to water, people are fighting, there's disputes all because of water. And you think there's water everywhere. Well, there's no water everywhere from what we are gathering. And today I saw an article where the title was "How Control of Water Shapes Power and National Security in Africa." Of course, it's very interesting. So, in the colonial era, I do not know what the colonial people were thinking about. They were having these demarcations and all, and deciding who had what and who didn't have what. And when they left, they didn't live in a way that could bring harmony. They were living in a way that was bringing disunity. And one of those things they left very I don't know how to put it in the right words, but they just left it open to dispute is water. So, for example, I think is it the Shobe River in Namibia and Botswana. So Namibia and Botswana are sharing a particular river, and there's argument about who owns what. If you want to understand water, so water again is very important in terms of agriculture, in terms of fisheries, dams, and all sorts of economic stability, access to this drinking water, provision of so many other things, jobs and the likes. And there's been that dispute. The International Court of Justice had favored Botswana in a way. Namibia also feeling like, oh, I've been left out. So that is causing a lot of tension. The Orange River is also having a lot of tension. And the most famous one is the Nile, the River Nile. The River Nile, Ethiopia and Egypt, among the other eight or so of them, there are tensions about who owns the river. Ethiopia is like, we built the dam. Egypt is like, we own the river. So bringing it a lot from the wider African setting, where there's a lot of disputes, majorly in South Africa, in Botswana, Namibia, and then talking about Egypt and Ethiopia and all the other countries. When I think about water, I think about truly, yes, this is going to be a national security issue, and also there's going to be influence of power in this. Why? Growing up, I used to go and fetch water far away from my home where I was, where we had our house. And when we go there, of course, at a point in time, you have these long queues with jerry cans and buckets, people trying to fill their houses, their drums. So normally I would walk, fetch water, carry the jerry can on my head, and we'll walk a bit and then go and fill all the drums, the buckets. My aunt will take it, and then until everything is filled up, that can take us 3 days, depending in the house at that time. And I could understand when people would complain and say, I bet the water don't finish, or there was no water. Could imagine the struggle. Those who had power, who were in charge of the water, they controlled how we had access to water. And then moving on to where another community, as I was growing up, those people who had boreholes, electricity, or even had generators and could pump water, because the community did not have generator. So if there was no electricity, meaning they would not pump water, and if there was no electricity for days, meaning the whole community would not have water. So it was only those people who had newer houses, who had come in and started building as a result of rapid urbanization, that had water. They could pump water during the time when there was no electricity. So people would go and carry their buckets, their jerry can, and start looking for water. And some people would close their gates and say, well, I can only allow 2 people to fetch, and maybe I will allow you 2 times, I will allow you 4 times. Let me tell you something. In my house, then we had a tap outside, and it gets to a time my mama will say they don't drink, they fetch out the water finish. Of course, people abuse water at that time. They'll leave it running and they misuse it and all. But let's leave whether there was shenanigans of abusing water or not. Water has power. Water, if you can control water, you you can control a lot of things. Security, food, a lot of things. And I think it's a very interesting conversation when we talk about access to clean and safe water, whether it's for agriculture, whether it's for drinking, whether it's for industry, and even in creating jobs. Whoever has the power has everything in his hand. Now I'm getting to understand why they say water is going to be a security threat, or it's going to have a lot of control as the years go by. Have you ever thought of water like this?